On April 28, 2025, in Chatham, Illinois, a vehicle left the road, traveled through a field into the east side of the Why Not After School Camp located at 301 Breckenridge Road in Chatham, Illinois. ISP and numerous other first responders responded to this crash scene. An ISP investigation of this incident has been underway nonstop since the moment of the crash, and we are now able to share additional information with the public without interfering in the investigative process. At approximately 3:20 p.m., the vehicle traveled through the building, striking numerous individuals before exiting the other side. 4 individuals were killed in the crash. 7-year-old Alma Buhner-Kempe, 7-year-old Catherine Corley, 8-year-old Ainsley Johnson, and 18-year-old Riley Britton. There are additional children that were injured in the crash and were taken to the hospital, and some of them have been released. The specifics of that we're not going to share at the request of the family and the parents of those children. The driver and sole occupant of the vehicle, a 44-year-old female, Marianne Akers of Chatham, that information has previously been provided to the public, was transported to an area hospital for evaluation where she provided blood and urine samples and was released. In addition to the ISP Division of Patrol quickly responding to the crash scene to help victims, to support first responders providing medical care, and to set up a perimeter to make sure the scene was secure, ISP has dedicated all our available resources needed to investigate this crash. ISP Crime Scene Services and Traffic Crash Reconstruction officers have been collecting evidence, reconstructing the crash scene using photography, drone video, diagramming, and analyzing information obtained from the vehicle's computer. The overall scene was examined and photographed by an unmanned aerial surveillance system and was utilized to capture aerial images, including photography of the vehicle's pre- and post-impact path of travel, which measured over 1,300 feet in length. An event data recorder was obtained and data collected from the operating systems of the vehicle prior to the crash, and that data will, of course, be analyzed and compared to the physical evidence located at the scene. This is standard professional investigation of this type of incident by the Illinois State Police. Numerous ISP special agents have been conducting a tireless and thorough investigation that includes interviewing dozens upon dozens of individuals, reviewing calls, video, reports from other agencies, of course, medical records and tests, and countless other evidentiary leads. The Illinois State Police Division of Forensic Services analyzed the blood and urine samples that were provided by the driver. At this time, we can report initial preliminary toxicology test results were negative for alcohol and negative for controlled substances. The analysis is a comprehensive panel that tested negative for all forms of alcohol, including negative for acetone, negative for ethanol, negative for isopropanol, and negative for methanol, as well as negative for controlled substances, including negative for benzodiazepine, negative for amphetamines, negative for cocaine, negative for opiates, negative for cannabinoids, and negative for phencyclidine. Some evidence has been developed indicating the possibility of a medical emergency leading up to the crash. However, the investigation of this information and other evidence has not yet concluded and will continue until all leads and research has been exhausted. Throughout this state police investigation, we have been in close contact with the victims or victims' families, and we have continued to work very closely and professionally with the Sangamon County State's Attorney, John Milhiser, and his outstanding team. The investigation is ongoing, and no charges have been filed. The entirety of our investigation, all evidence and all ascertainable facts, will be submitted to that office for review at the conclusion of our investigation for a determination of what charges, if any, are appropriate under the law. As always, ISP is not alone when confronting these challenges. ISP responded, of course, but with Chatham, Springfield, Pawnee, Sherman, Auburn, Rochester, and Springfield Park District Police Departments, Chatham and Springfield Fire Departments, the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office, the Sangamon County Coroner, America and Medics First Ambulance Services, Arch, Air, and Saints Flight, the Red Cross, and other first responders, and I want to thank each and every one of them, many of whom are standing here with us here today. From the Illinois State Police, I want to thank, in particular, the Illinois State Police Division of Patrol Troop 6, Commander Josh Adcock, Lieutenant Craig Poole, and Acting Lieutenant Andrew Kaczynski, and their team for their swift and sure response that day. Also from the Division of Forensic Services, Trooper Jake Miller of the Traffic Crash Reconstruction Unit, and Crime Scene Investigator Emily Malding of Crime Scene Services, as well as the rest of their team for their incredible technical expertise and their forensic skills that they've displayed during the course of this investigation. In particular, I want to thank the Division of Criminal Investigation Zone 4, Captain Don Payton, Acting Lieutenant Eric Weston, and all the personnel from Zone 4 for their tireless and relentless pursuit of the evidence and facts, and their attention and care and concern for the victims and their families. We know their work is not yet done, but we acknowledge those incredible efforts nonetheless. Every day from one end of the state to the other, the men and women of the ISP respond to crashes. Every day from one end of the state to the other, they investigate cases involving the loss of life. Our people and all first responders are tough. But when a child dies, when children die, it weighs on their hearts and their minds and their souls. I'm beyond proud of their commitment as officers of the law and their compassion as human beings. They have maintained their focus with crystal clarity, but have also found a way to display empathy and sensitivity for those impacted by this horrific incident, and also take care of each other along the way. We offer our sincere and heartfelt condolences to the family, friends, and Chatham community during this difficult time. And now please join me for a brief moment of silence on behalf of the victims and for survivors and those who have been lost and those who love them. Thank you. Now I'll take whatever questions I can.
What evidence do you have of a medical emergency? What are the steps you're taking to confirm or?
Yeah, so as I indicated, the investigation is ongoing, so we're not going to get into the specifics of what those pieces of evidence are. To do so, I think, would interfere in that process. We also want to make sure that we're following whatever leads we get objectively and not necessarily reaching any conclusions, because ultimately it is the state's attorney's office that will have to take whatever those facts are and apply them to the law. So we're able to share what we can to make sure the community has some awareness, and we provide a level of transparency, but we also have to make sure we're balancing that with the needs of the investigation. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Just to follow up, was it 1,300 feet from the moment she left the road through the end of the other side of the building?
Well, as I said, and I'll refer back to specifically what my comments were about what the length of that is, and I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but I'll just, if you look back at what I said and how I described that, that's the price. Not going to share that with you at this point, because that's, again, part of the overall traffic crash reconstruction process. And again, we don't want to prejudice any of that process at this point. Yes, sir.
Director, is the quote that she may have suffered a medical emergency?
So as I indicated, there's some evidence that has been developed that indicates that's a possibility. But when, again, the process is still ongoing, the evidence is still being developed, and there's a lot of work still to do, and we're going to keep doing that until all possible leads and explanations have been exhausted. But there's some evidence that may indicate that, but that is not conclusive yet. Yes, sir.
Director, you indicated that the driver had cooperated at the hospital and provided those samples.
Correct.
Is the Illinois State Police still in communication, constant communication with the driver? Is there any indication that there would be future cooperation as a part of this investigation?
Well, again, that's not something we're going to share because that's part of the investigation. That process is still ongoing. That's something that we're not going to discuss in this context, because how that unfolds is yet to be determined.
Director, thanks
Yes.
for the opportunity.
Yes, sir.
Early on, we were told this is not a targeted attack. Now, to the extent you can tell us, how were you able to eliminate that, and is that still the case?
Sure. So if you think about, that terminology, a targeted attack, it implies a certain intent or some specific motive or a link of some type, a nexus between the person, that was maybe in this case the driver and that location, and there's just no evidence of that would indicate that this was something was intended as some type of mass violence or terrorist attack or something along those natures. There's absolutely nothing to indicate that whatsoever.
Director, the building owner of Wynot posted on Facebook saying that troopers were there with her, holding her while she was crying. How does that speak to the integrity of your troopers and just the integrity of law enforcement overall?
Well, I appreciate that you asked that, and I appreciate that you mentioned integrity, and that is one of the core values of the Illinois State Police. Obviously, they are incredible human beings that do this type of service, and they're human, though, too. And they see when people are suffering, and they're not just responding to the emergency and dealing with the situation at hand and ensuring that the integrity of the crime scene is not disrupted in any way. They're also just seeing human beings that are in pain and doing what any good person would and trying to comfort them. And that's, the right thing to do, but it's also very much part of what the Illinois State Police is about, because that relationship with the public is very beneficial when it comes to the point where we need to be investigating leads, solving crimes, and getting information that will help us establish what happens in any particular type of crime. So I appreciate you asking that. Yes, sir. Not that I'm willing to share at this point. We're working as fast as we can. Yes, sir. No. What maybe what you're referring to is, so we'll use some very impressive technology with our drones to go up and see what the path is. You're getting a bird's eye view to see where a particular vehicle may have driven and where a particular structure is, and we'll see both before, leading up to the impact, and then after the impact, that's part of the evidence that's been collected, sir.
Director, can you confirm if the driver was an employee for Illinois State Police and what her role was?
Sure. Yeah, we've previously confirmed that, and we've provided what information we could about her employment here. It was, I think, almost 7 years ago, and so she hasn't worked here for some time. And as a result of her not having been here for some time, there's certain limitations in terms of state law about what personnel records we even keep or are able to provide publicly. So yes, we can confirm that she worked here, but that's about as much information as we can give you.
Director, I know the driver is not in custody in any way, but is there any sort of restriction in place or requirement that she stay within the county or the city?
She is not in custody, and just like any other person.
What type of data
Yes, sir.
analytics can that black box in the vehicle tell you? What things
Well, there's a whole lot, and it is very impressive, the investigative techniques that our folks in traffic crash reconstruction use, and it also very much depends on the type of vehicle. It depends on the age of the vehicle. It depends on the various sensors that each vehicle has. But I'm not going to get into specifically what that may reveal in this case. Again, that's factual information that the prosecutor will have to look at in its entirety. But it is a lot of information that can be gleaned from that. Speed, the way the car was moving, the way different parts of the engine may have been operating at a certain time, and then all that will be taken into context of the additional evidence that was gathered at the scene and combined with the physical evidence. So it is a lot, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to tell you everything. It's not a magic tool that will solve every crime, but it is circumstantial evidence that, along with other things, can be considered.
What was the response time, and do you know who first reached her? Was it ISP officers and was she conscious, the driver?
It was immediate by many of the people you see standing here, immediate response. And I'm not going to comment specifically about what her condition was or affect was or who specifically spoke to her. Again, those are witnesses. Those are things that are specific points of fact that a prosecutor will have to decide what that means in terms of the implications of the law. But again, what I indicated to you remains true, that some evidence has been developed that indicates that some type of medical emergency may have occurred. May, but that's not the end of the discussion.
How many witness statements have you
Dozens upon dozens.
There were a lot of people in the area, perhaps more people could have been injured. I mean,
Well, obviously, this was, goes without saying, this was more than one person being injured is a terrible thing. And there were a lot of people there, and there's a tremendous loss of life. I don't know how to define a lot, but it was, a congregation of people that were there as part of this daycare. And so it's just horrible. I don't know how else to describe it. Yes, sir.
Director, to follow up on that, do you know approximately how many people were?
Off the top of my head, I don't, but we can get that information for you and give you a sense of how many people may have been there. Yes.
Can you explain why her name was released, given the sensitive nature of what happened and the
Yeah.
possibility of, retaliation against her?
Sure. So that name was already out there in open sources. Confirming it was not providing any information other than what was already had been made available. So.
Judge, is it unusual for someone not to be charged in a situation like this, or can you describe it on the
I don't know what unusual means, but this is every case, every tragedy, every investigation has different nuances. But what's important about what the Illinois State Police do is that we follow the facts no matter where they take us. Do not reach any conclusion before we've done a proper investigation. There's obviously high emotion in something like this. We have people that are impacted by this. We're part of this community, but the Illinois State Police, our view and what integrity is to relentlessly pursue those facts no matter where they take us. So that's the way we're handling this case, as we do all cases, and what those conclusions are is yet to be determined. Yes, sir.
The picture that circulated in the aftermath of the crash that showed the back of a woman in handcuffs. Can you confirm if that was real or if that,
I can't because I haven't seen the picture.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else?
You mentioned just, how difficult it was for the responding officers, just how it weighs on their hearts, their minds, and their souls. Is there going to be, any other support for those responding officers? Obviously, that was
Yeah.
a very traumatic
Yeah.
thing to respond to.
Absolutely, and thank you for asking that, Megan. As a matter of course, and as a matter of the way we do things, we do critical incident debriefings, particularly for an event like this. As I said, we're concerned about the people that have been impacted, victims, their families, survivors, witnesses, preserving the evidence. But even as tough as our people are, they are impacted by what they're seeing in a tragedy like this. And so what makes them strong is this. That's the strongest tool that they have. It's not their badge. It's not their gun. It's not the other tools that they have. Their most important tool is this. And so we want to make sure that is taken care of and maintained. These guys do a great job of lifting each other up and getting themselves through these difficult things. But we have systems in place, we have services in place, and we have a pretty deliberate process to make sure that we're debriefing and people are looking after each other. We can always do better. Undoubtedly, we can always do better. But one way you can help us to do better is to, if you see a police officer, thank them just for the stuff that they have to do every day. Because it's not every day they're dealing with things like this that are so clearly and specifically an awful circumstance. But it's little things that they deal with on a daily basis that can also add up in terms of that stress. So, all right, thank you all very much.